In Chapter 22, we begin our study of the last major portion of this book, which is dealing with weak consonants in verbs. Until now, our study of the Hebrew verbal system has largely been introduced with what we call strong consonants, consonants that exhibit few, if any, changes, depending on their position in the word and the other sounds that surround them. There are several Hebrew letters, however, which show various weaknesses, meaning that they behave differently from the typical strong letters with which we've been working. These weaknesses can change the formation of various verbal forms. These changes are usually predictable, but they can cause it to be more difficult to recognize the verbal form you're dealing with, and they can particularly cause it to be more difficult to identify the three root letters from which the verb is formed. The next 6 chapters of this book, therefore, will concentrate on these weak letters and how they impact the verbal forms. These weaknesses are usually termed in terms of first, second, and third, in the sense of which of the 3 root letters the weakness occurs in. So first root letter, kof, in our typical paradigm form of katal, second root letter, tet, third root letter, lamed. Depending on whether the weakness is present in the first, second, or third position will determine how the weakness is termed. In this chapter, we will look at what are called first guttural verbs. In other words, cases where the kof of our typical paradigm form is a guttural letter. In chapter 23, we will look at second guttural verbs, places where the second root letter is a guttural, and cases where the third root letter is either a het or ayin. Chapter 24, we will discuss cases where the third root letter is a he. And in chapter 25, we will discuss cases where the second root letter is a vav or a yod. This is often called middle weak verbs or hollow verbs. In chapter 26, we'll discuss cases where the third root letter is an aleph. And then in chapter 27, we will discuss cases where the first root letter is a yod.